Welcome to the Sacred Menstruation workshop. Thank you so much for joining me this evening or this morning or wherever you may be in the world. If you wouldn't mind just keeping your microphone muted while we were live until a question and answer session at the end of the workshop. This is being recorded, just so you know. We're going to journey through the different phases of the menstrual cycle. We're going to speak about her story, the feminine version of his story, and discuss how we can use our menstrual cycle as a spiritual practice. If there's any issues, I've had a little bit of issues with sound with my laptop. If you could write in the chat if anything gets a bit glitchy or my sound goes a bit funny, please let me know. My name is Holly Fairley. I'm from Shakti Holistic Healing is my business, and Shakti Healing on Instagram. It's Shakti_healing. And I'm so deeply honored to be presenting this workshop tonight. It's a little snippet of my most recent e-course I've created, the Sacred Menstruation E-Mersion, which is a 4-week journey deep into the different phases of the menstrual cycle and different practices and ancient rituals to give us deep tools and guidance and support to really tap into the energy that is available to us in the menstrual cycle, the powerful, deep healing energy that we have as women. So I'd just like to start in a ceremonial way by this beautiful invocation. And so if you can sit up straight, if that's available to you, at least having a straight spine while you're laying down, closing down your eyes and taking a nice deep breath into your heart space, feeling it open and soften. Exhaling down through the body, through the womb space, down into the center of the earth. Connecting with the earth's womb space, the center of the earth. Feeling that connection between the center of the earth's womb, and your heart. And also the heavens above. Let's just one more breath, breathing in from the heavens above into the heart space, exhaling down through the body, through the womb space, down into the center of the earth. With your awareness back at your heart space, we call the divine feminine, the inner knowing within each of us, feminine wisdom, courage, and strength. We call the women who have gone before us, mothers, midwives, wise women, ancestors, be with us. Remind us to trust our bodies. Remind us to trust the birth process and to surrender our fears and worries. Remind us to be simply with what is, our awesome selves, powerful, creative, yielding and wielding. We call on the ancient birth and fertility goddesses that women have called on forever to guide us, nurture us, protect us, and support us. Bridget, Artemis, Ixchel, Freya, Yaminya, Changing Woman, Pukingak, Sri Lakshmi, Kuan Yin, Toret, Hatha, Gaia, Nanjantia, Mother Isis, Mother Mary, and Mary Magdalene. Teachers of the divine feminine womb wisdom and guardians of the gateway of conception and birth. We give thanks to you for answering our call. We give thanks for peace, love, joy, and harmony. We give thanks for healing, for insight, for happiness, for fun, and for safety. We give thanks for our connection to the earth and the moon. We give thanks for the opportunity to heal ourselves and to help heal the world. We also give thanks for the opportunity to live our life purpose by sharing our medicine with the world. We give thanks for all of humanity to feel safe, supported, guided, and nurtured. And take this moment, take this breath to pay respects to the original custodians of the land, whatever land you may be sitting on. I'm currently on a Wabikal country in New South Wales in Australia. I pay respects to the land, the spirits, and the guardians, and the ancestors past, present, and emerging. And again, a nice deep breath into our heart space, breathing in, allowing it to open and soften, calling yourself fully present, and then exhaling down through the body, through the womb space, down into the center of the earth. Feeling that groundedness, stability, and support of the center of the earth. Now, this breath practice is quite simple and quite easy, and you can do it while you're sitting, standing, driving, cooking dinner, walking, whatever you may be doing. It's much easier if you're upright. It gets a little bit confusing if you're laying down, but when you're upright, you can imagine breathing in this energy from the heavens above, and the heavens above, we have the guidance and support of our ancestors, our helping spirits, angels, and the universe above. And breathing that into our heart space, the space of unconditional love. And then exhaling down through the body, moving that energy down through the body, the intestines, all the organs, the womb space, and sending that down into the center of the earth. And the earth is where we gain our grounded, connected, supported, stable energy from. And this downward flow of energy is called apana vayu. It's a downward flow of vata, air and space energy that we need for healthy menstruation, for elimination, for birth, for urination. So that downward flow is really important. And for pregnant women, I ask that you then, until the time's right, when you're wanting to go into labor, of course, activating that downward flow of energy is really important. But earlier in the pregnancy, it's important once you get to the center of the earth, then to breathe that energy back up and circulate it back up from the earth, the womb space, the heart, and back up to the heavens. And sometimes you might intuitively want to do that as well. But I find most modern women, we have too much energy up in our heads and not enough energy in our heart space and our womb space. So it's really important to bring that energy down. And then that also helps with the downward flow of energy for healthy menstruation. Now, if anyone has any questions as we're going through this presentation, please just write it in the chat. Any questions, comments, or if anything starts to get a bit glitchy and you need to let me know, I'll keep an eye on the chat. So I would like you to contemplate, if you've got a journal with you, that would be great, or a piece of paper. I'll give you some questions throughout to contemplate and dig a little bit deeper into later on. And the first simple one, which we'll review at the end of our session together, is how do you feel about your blood, your menstrual blood? And then reflecting, how do you feel about your physical body? Because quite often there's an intimate connection of our feminine wounds. You might just think it's about your blood and you've dealt with the physical body shame, but quite often they're intricately connected. And yeah, healing our blood shame is a huge part of healing our feminine shame and the wounded feminine that we have experienced for many, many lifetimes, many, many generations, the last 5,000 years. We will speak more about this. I love this quote. So when women give their blood back to the earth, men will come home from war and the earth shall find peace. This is the Native American Hopi prophecy. when women give their blood back to the earth, men will come home from war and the earth shall find peace. So I just naturally always think back to what it was like back in the tribal days, how our ancestors lived. There was no moon cups, menstrual cups, pads, tampons, things that you just put in the bin and dispose of. The blood was going directly to the earth. And through my work and my study, I believe, and downloads that I've received while menstruating, I believe that all women around the whole world were menstruating at the same time. All women menstruating either on the dark moon or the new moon, and then all women ovulating at the full moon. And we'll speak more about how that was honored and why that might be the case, but just wanted to plant that in here so you can contemplate that. And yes, we have all different variations of menstruation now as modern women. We have artificial light, we have stress, we have more of a masculine society and pressures in our life. There's many different things, or perhaps the earth just needs us to be bleeding at all different times. Who knows? And we also, our cycles shift and we get to experience bleeding on different moon phases, which I just had a full moon bleed for the first time in maybe 10 years. And yeah, it was a completely different experience, which we'll speak more about what it means to menstruate on the different moon phases. So giving our blood back to the earth activates our blueprint. And then we become conduits between the heavens and the earth. Linking these two celestial energies, the earth and the moon, activates our inner knowing, our feminine remembrance, nourishing the earth, and an offering of our blood, a sacrament for the collective feminine healing. It is such a powerful experience being able to give our blood back to the earth. If you want to write in the chat, let me know if you've done that before and how that makes you feel. If you haven't, or if you do, a little bit of feedback on that in the chat would be really great. But yeah, that's been a huge part of my healing. The first stage of healing really is being able to rest while we're menstruating. That's hard enough to do in the masculine society, particularly if a woman's working in the corporate world. Society really expects women to look the same and act the same all month long, and that is not the reality of the feminine. And so we'll just journey through her story here. Her story is the feminine history, and there's just some quotes and information I've put in here through my research. It shows in historic cultures, a menstruating woman was considered sacred and powerful, with increased psychic abilities strong enough to heal the sick. According to the Cherokee, menstrual blood was a source of feminine strength and had the power to destroy enemies. Menstrual blood is viewed as especially dangerous to men's power. In Africa, menstrual blood is used in the most powerful magic charms in order to both purify and destroy. So we can contemplate how a woman is viewed in society. A menstruating woman is viewed in our society. We've been conditioned to believe that we are weak, less of than the masculine, that we're dirty and impure. And when I found this research back from ancient times, so pre 2000, some people say pre 2000, some say pre 5000, there was a shift in energy. Pre 5,000 years ago, it was more feminine energy. There was more of worshipping of the moon, worshipping of nature and the earth, living in harmony. I believe women were the keepers of the land, of the law. And, you know, women have more sensitivity and compassion and understanding. The feminine energy, at least. When I say women, I mean feminine. I don't want to get into the whole gender thing, but just feminine energy is more compassionate, nurturing, and understanding. And that energy started to shift. It's a natural cycle, I believe, of the Earth's frequency shifting, the collective energy shifting. And then we saw the Bronze Age and the Iron Age. And this was the rape and pillage and quest and conquer, and the kings, and the more land and the more power. Then came with the more suppression of the feminine. And this is also then we recently, or not so recently, seen the witch hunts a couple of 100 years ago. Any woman that was seen to be powerful or different, too loud, too powerful, too connected to nature was killed, seen as a witch. So that really was the peak of dismantling and destroying and destructiveness of the matriarch, the feminine energy. And the archaeologists are finding, or have found, not many, but that a lot were burnt, or the churches were built on top of the goddess temples. So the goddess worship era has been destroyed, which was pre 5,000 years ago. So yeah, let me know if you've got any questions about that. But you can just sense and feel what it was like with the feminine energy, the nourishment of the earth, living in reverence, women all menstruating at the same time in harmony with rituals, retreating, and this deep honoring and reverence for the land and the earth. The energy shifted, more masculine energy has become dominant. And yeah, the quest, conquer, rape, pillage, the kings, the witch hunts. And now here we are here. Here we are in a point where the shift is starting to take place and we're coming back into harmony. Of course, we have all sorts of things like technology and artificial intelligence, and it's not as primitive, but the shift is taking place. And who knows how long that will take, and whether we have to self-destruct before we can rise from the ashes, or we will come into a beautiful balance point of harmony between the masculine and the feminine energy. And I just wanted to speak about, there's one aspect I like to add into this about women being able to go into temples. I spend a lot of time, or have previously, pre-COVID, spent a lot of time in Indonesia and in Bali. And women aren't allowed to go into the temples while they are menstruating. And of course, the conditioning has been because they're dirty and impure, and they're not allowed into the holy places because you're dirty and you need to stay at home. And then also in India, and this is still a very customed practice in India. Women are treated differently when they are menstruating. They have their own set of cutlery. Sometimes they have their own room in the house, and they go into that room, and they were shunned in a way and locked out from the rest of the family. And the conditioning again is because she's dirty and impure, and might suck the pranic flow out of the food or the cutlery or the sacred objects. But the woman is going through an intensive detoxification process. She is releasing free radicals. So that detoxification process, perhaps the understanding is that if a woman, when she's menstruating, touches a sacred object, she's pulling the energy from the sacred object and then releasing it from her blood. She's taking the negative ions from the object, which the negative ions are actually the positive ones. But that still doesn't resonate with me. The woman's going through such an intensive detoxification process. We know as women what it's like when we're menstruating. We're so sensitive, and if someone else is going through something emotionally, it feels like we take that emotions on. So my understanding and my belief is that that is actually the other way around, that when a menstruating woman releasing free radicals and detoxing, if she touches another person, she's taking on their potential free radicals or their negative energy, which she can detox with her blood. And that's when one of the first quotes that I read out in Africa, how a menstruating woman was seen as psychic and powerful enough to heal the sick, I believe that is the aspect of it, that a menstruating woman can pull negative energy from objects and people and be able to then release it with her blood. So that's my understanding. But even just, I like to put this in because even for, you know, Western women that aren't connected to Eastern cultures might have no idea that women are treated any differently and while they're menstruating. And that in itself, it's a powerful thing, but it's being conditioned to see as dirty and impure, which takes the woman's power and sovereignty in a way away from her. So my belief is that the women that have their own room in their house, they're going to that room and they're meditating and doing their sacred practices and having that time and space of clarity, having that time and space away from the family, protecting herself from the family and their negative energy, and simplifying life so she can connect to the higher realms, connect with the prophecy and the psychic ability that women have. It is enhanced while we're menstruating. But modern women, because of the conditionings that we have in this patriarchal society, we don't give ourselves the time and space to connect with that, the sacredness and these powerful gifts that we have while we're menstruating. So yes, in India, some homes, they have their own house. And like I said, it's conditioned, their own, room, house would be nice. They have their own room in the house. And we're conditioned to think that it's because they're dirty and they're not allowed to be touching objects in the house and the family needs to be protected from them. But my belief is it's actually an ancient tradition that the woman has her own space. She can meditate, connect to prophecy and her psychic dreams without the distractions of her family and mundane house chores. And so as modern women, how can we integrate that for ourselves? Just create time and space as much as you can while you're menstruating. No cooking, no cleaning, reduce your workload. Just give yourself that time and space just once a month. And I just, like I mentioned at the start of the workshop, I just had my first full moon bleed in about 10 years. And it was really hard to have that time and space because I actually really wanted to connect with people. I couldn't sleep. I felt really scattered. Where when I bleed on the dark moon or the full moon, there is that deep rest and I feel really connected, really grounded and really connected to my psychic abilities. So we menstruate on different moon phases for different reasons to experience different energy. And I appreciate having that experience because it deepens into my work so that I can relate more with women when they are menstruating on the full moon. If anyone has any questions or comments, please put them in the chat. So in Australia's Dreamtime, the supernatural being known as the rainbow serpent has been interpreted as, amongst other things, as an Indigenous way of conceptualizing the ideal of synchronized tidal, lunar, menstrual, and seasonal periodicities, whose also harmony is believed confers to the spiritual power and fertility. So Aboriginal law also teaches here in Australia that when a young woman's blood first touches the earth, that activates her blueprint and then aligns her with her life purpose. And this is the same for sperm for men, but it's most potent when the placenta is buried in the earth. So that makes me contemplate how most of ours or all of our placentas were burnt as medical waste unless you had cool hippie parents that kept your placenta and buried it, or some kind of tradition in your family. But when we look at all the tribal people, the way that our ancestors lived, the placenta went straight into the earth. So yeah, just like to put that in there too. So it just helps to help with our future to ensure these placentas end up in the earth. So yeah, so in the Native American tradition, a woman is considered to be her most powerful physically and spiritually when she's menstruating. Because of her powers, this time should not be wasted on mundane tasks and distractions. Resting during menstruation is evoking attention in the spiritual realms and gathering wisdom. In this tradition and many other cultures, a woman would leave her family and tribe with the other menstruating woman and go on a retreat or a menstrual hut called the Moon Lodge. It is seen as a deep, purifying, and sacred time, giving women space to rest and connect with prophecy and gain spiritual wisdom. Re-emerging after 3 days and 3 nights, resurrected, women were then revered for the wisdom they gained for themselves and the tribe. So I'd love you to contemplate how you can integrate this for yourself. Create a sacred menstrual practice. Simplify your life and schedule during menstruation is one way you can do that. Easy enough to do when you work for yourself, and if your cycle's regular, you can know when your cycle's coming and make sure your schedule's cleared for at least that first day, if not 3 days. And even a week, that whole week, the winter week should be a nice slow week of hibernation and inward energy. And again, like I mentioned, that is quite hard to do when you are when you bleed on the full moon, when you have a red moon bleed, but still have that intention to do the best that you can. If you can, collect your blood and give it back to the earth. This is such a powerful practice. You'll feel it if you're not familiar with having a connection and relationship with your blood is your creative, fertile essence that's being detoxed. It's come from you, it's come from your womb, and it's just such a potent thing to be able to heal and have that connection with your blood. And also seeing your blood and feeling your blood, it's also a sign of how things are functioning in your physical body. If something's off, you'll see it in your blood. The flow, excessive flow, light flow, long cycle, short cycle, different colors, different consistencies, they all mean something. And giving it back to the earth, a prayer, it's an offering. So what you're releasing, whatever you're releasing with your blood, like I mentioned, it's an intensive detoxification process, but we're also releasing emotionally. But when we're giving that emotion, that release to the earth, it's nourishing the earth, because you're giving that energy to her as a prayer, and the earth is able to transmute that and send it back as unconditional love. And so, yeah, it's an offering for the healing of the earth and the feminine. Just had someone say, thank you for the powerful reminders. I don't mind the odd bush wee camping and have definitely let my blood onto the ground. Yes, me too. I seem to be, camping a lot with the way that I live my life, and I will, if I've got the choice to go to a toilet or out in nature, I'll go out in nature, particularly when I'm menstruating, because I know that's going straight to the ground. And even if you are going to the toilet when you've got your menstrual cycle, just know that as soon as you're pressing the toilet button, that's going down. It might not be going straight down onto the earth, but it's going to end up somewhere around the earth at some stage. So just saying that prayer as you touch the button is also really powerful. But of course, if you've got the opportunity to go out onto the grass, I even go out into my backyard when I can, rather than going to the toilet when I'm menstruating. Otherwise, I soak my period undies in a jar and then pour that in onto the earth or a menstrual cup. That's quite easy to do that. So menstruation in synchrony with the moon is widely assumed in myths and traditions as a ritual idea. The idea that menstruation is, or ideally ought to be, in harmony with wider cosmic rhythms is one of the most tenacious ideas central to the myths and rituals of traditional communities across the world. One of the most thought-going analysis of primitive mythology ever undertaken was that of the French anthropologist Claude Lestrus, who concluded that, taken together with the indigenous myths of North and South America, who expressed men's worry that unless women's periods were carefully monitored and synchronized, the universe might descend into chaos. So this brings us back to the contemplation, like I started with, that all women potentially menstruated at the same time around the dark moon, new moon. They would leave their tribes to the moon lodge, the menstrual hut, and then they would all have beautiful ceremonies and rituals to nourish and release. And then 2 weeks later, with the full moon, would ovulate and have beautiful ceremonies around ovulation and creativity and fertility. And now we all menstruating at different times all around the globe. Our lives aren't as simple and connected. We're not as connected to nature. We have artificial lights, this light in my face after dark. I should have my blue light glasses on, actually. And we don't have as much rhythm and connection with nature. We don't have as much rhythm in our life. So you can see quite easily how we would be out of balance. But potentially we need to be menstruating on different moon phases. For our own personal healing, different moon phases give us different energy. And they say to bleed on the full moon is the bleed of a healer, of a witch. It's called a red moon bleed. And that is because we don't experience as much deep rest and inward energy when we're menstruating on the full moon. And it's exhausting. I'm hoping mine doesn't keep coming on the full moon. I much prefer a dark moon bleed, but it does give you more energy to be in service, to be in the community, to be out there in society rather than going inward in your deep cave. But I kept my cycle linked with the moon for quite a few years, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in the next slide when I've got the menstrual wheel up. I just wanted to read this out. Dis-ease can only take hold in a woman when her Shakti is depleted and her rhythms are out of sync with Mother Moon. So this quote's by Swami Makananda. And so I just find that really interesting. When a woman's Shakti is depleted, which is a feminine energy, which most modern women have, a depleted Shakti energy, and her rhythms are out of sync with Mother Moon. So perhaps that being out of sync and being depleted is the root cause of dis-ease. So we have some journaling homework before we go on to the menstrual wheel and the menstrual seasons. If you want to screenshot this, you're welcome. Otherwise, I'll just read it out now and you can try and jot it down. How do you feel about your blood and how do you feel about your body is one of the first questions that I ask, and you can reflect on that and see if hopefully something might have shifted a little bit from our time together. What was your experience of menarche, your first period? Can you see this experience, which is a rite of passage into womanhood? Can you see it affecting your beliefs of your body and your feminine essence? So traditionally, a young woman was absolutely celebrated and honored when she got her first bleed. She would be so excited for this to happen, to have this celebration from the community for her and appreciation for the role, coming into the role of a woman and the responsibility that has and the potential to be able to become a wife and have a baby. And so now we have wounded feminine mothers, wounded mothers and mother wounds, and more than likely we felt ashamed, felt like there was something wrong with us. We were embarrassed when we first got our period, unless you had a really awesome mother that was in touch with this stuff and potentially a hippie. So that however we're treated in that time teaches us how society validates us. So just good thing to reflect back on, relive the experience of how it felt when you first started bleeding, because I think it's something like 38% of women think they're dying and think there's something really wrong with them when their period first comes. So what kind of thoughts and beliefs is that then imprinting moving forward as a young woman, and then coming into our next initiation phase, which is the initiation into motherhood during birth. And if you can see, there's quite an intimate connection of why women are just checking themselves into hospitals and saying to the doctors, do whatever you want with me, because I have this belief that there is something wrong with them and that they need someone outside of themselves to save them. So how can you implement a ritual of offering your blood back to the earth? So when you're ready, as a part of healing your blood shame, if you can, can be a next big step, is putting some blood on your third eye on the third night of your menstrual cycle to open up to your psychic and prophetic dreams, and have a notepad next to your bed so that you can write down your dreams. So our blood has our genetics in there, and putting it onto our third eye, our intuitive center, opens us up to ancestral wisdom. And I remember when I first heard of this, I was like, oh my God, that's really far out. There's no way I'm going to do that. And it took me a few years before I did it. But I'm just planting the seed because it is a really powerful practice, and also a powerful practice of healing our blood shame. Again, the belief that our blood is dirty and impure is the belief that our physical body, and us as a feminine existence, is dirty and impure. So to heal the blood shame is to heal the inner shame on all levels, I believe. So some of you might be aware of the different seasons of the menstrual cycle. Let me just check. We've got you've got a couple of things. Someone just mentioned this practice was amazing. I go into lucid dreaming every third night now. Yeah, it is really amazing for lucid dreaming. Really amazing. Sometimes, like, if anyone's done plant medicine, it can nearly be like taking plant medicine. It's really, really powerful. But definitely have a notepad next to your bed, because sometimes it's hard to remember the things and the hidden messages. Okay, so this is my menstrual wheel. There is a link in the Birthing a New Earth platform on my page. You can download this for free on my website. So week 1 is our menstrual week down the bottom here. We've got the crone, south. So actually this gets a little bit confusing, because in the southern hemisphere, the energy spins this way, counterclockwise. And in the northern hemisphere, the energy spins clockwise. So that's why the menstrual wheel, the wheels, seasonal wheels and directional wheels, are opposite and can be really confusing. So I'm so used to the wheel going this way, anti-clockwise. But for those of you in the northern hemisphere, this is back to front for you. So yeah, bear with me and do what you can. So south down the bottom here is the week 1. It's the crone, which is the enlightened elder woman, and it's our bleed in winter is the season. We've got death, estrogen release, letting go, winter, fire energy as we're cleansing and transforming. And it's a time for deep inward rest. And like we've spoken about, just 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, if you can, having that inward time of resting as much as possible. It is a time for deep rest and our own time and space. It's not a time to be giving to others, which can be very confusing if you're menstruating on the full moon, because that's complete polar opposite energy happening outside in the atmosphere. So after week 1, we're moving into week 2, maiden, spring, waxing moon, renewal, rebirth, rebuilding, re-emerging, resurrected is the word I love putting in there, because it really does feel like it. If you have a really deep winter phase, you're coming into spring, it feels like you're resurrected, reborn, and everything is starting to rebuild again after it's been shed and released and completely let go of. Then things start to rebuild. Our energy rebuilds, our confidence rebuilds, our creative energy starts to rebuild. And then we're moving into week 3, the mother archetype. And this is ovulation, summer energy. This is the peak. This is ovulation. This is the full moon energy, manifestation, expanding, creative, fertile energy, and progesterone peaks as well. And then we're waning back down, going back inward. And this is the air element. As we're preparing for a retreat, we're surrendering, we're processing. And this is either the conception or the death of an egg. And so there's that shift, that hormonal shift that takes place here. And this is a very powerful week. We'll talk more about this very shortly and briefly, because we're going a little bit over. No, we're not. That's okay. I've been online for longer than we needed. That's good. We've got a good amount of time. So yeah, this is a very powerful week. That crazy PMS week is actually a deep connection to our subconscious. And we have the ability to notice our thoughts, patterns, and beliefs, and then release them with our blood. Amazing. We also have the opportunity to release anything with our blood. We're then planting the seeds as well. You know, winter's the time for inward nourishment and hibernation, and to plant the seeds, and then they sprout up in summer, and then in spring they sprout up, and then summer's in full bloom. So that's how we can use our menstrual cycle for manifestation. We're becoming aware and starting to quieten in the autumn phase. In the winter phase, we're releasing, letting go, and then starting to plant the seeds, setting our intentions. And then spring, they're starting to sprout. Summer, they're in full bloom, full harvest. And then we're waning back in. And so how I've kept my cycle until now connected with the moon phase is I've had 2 weeks inward and 2 weeks outward. So I have my inward time, autumn and winter. That's my time, inward time. That's time for myself. And then spring and summer is my time and energy for the collective, for my work, for my business. And that has kept my cycle really balanced, but I have been traveling a lot lately and giving a lot of energy lately, and not have as much alone time as well. I've got 5 adults and 5 children living in the one household at the moment. So that's what's allowed me to shift to the full moon, so that I do bleed on, when I'm bleeding on the full moon, I can be still of service and I'm not getting that deep inward time, which, yeah, like I mentioned, is exhausting. Hopefully it doesn't last too long, because a new moon bleed just feels so restful. Where bleeding on the full moon, I couldn't sleep, and it was, yeah, lots of cool dreams and realizations, but not much rest. Anyone has any questions, please pop it in the chat. I'm just going to quickly go over these just to really deepen into the different phases in the menstrual cycle. Hopefully you already have an understanding of this, but seeing the cycle in 4 different phases is such powerful medicine. It gives you permission to have low energy and to rest. And it also gives you the ability to connect and create and be creative and fertile and not sleep much when you're ovulating. So the crone is the wise woman, and the wise woman has been through the whole life cycle. She doesn't compete with the external world for energy. She knows her own worth. She knows her values, and she's very grounded in who she is, and she knows when to rest. She doesn't have to be doing to be seen as worthy. She has her own sense of self-worth from her whole life experience. And so the crone, winter, new moon energy is the first week of our menstrual cycle. We're releasing, setting intentions, planting seeds, inward time for renewal. So this is the thinning of the veils, yin feminine energy, bleeding, letting go, shedding old stuff, low energy, inward energy, transformation, space and quiet time to honor your cycle. And this intensive detoxification process, it is time to rest deeply for at least the first day or 2 of your bleed. Allow your energy to be internal, avoid all physical, mental and emotional stimulation and exertion if possible. And this is very hard in the modern world, but any effort is better than none. To utilize this powerful and sacred time to honor yourself, connect with your needs and not the needs and wants of others. And that is very hard as a woman, particularly as a mother. Be true to yourself. If you don't look after yourself first, you won't have the energy and capacity to look after others. So yeah, just like put your life jacket on first and then help the other people. Menstrual conditions like clotting, pain, cramps, brown spotting from not honoring your cycle and resting the first couple of days of your moon time the month prior. It makes a huge difference in your menstrual cycle, your quality of blood, and your symptoms when you do actually take the time to rest. And when you do take the time to rest and nourish and nurture yourself while you're bleeding, you're then rewarded for it the next month. There'll be less pain, less clots, less brown blood, less back pain, less fatigue, less emotional instability, because you've filled your cup up and nurtured yourself and rested the month before. It's amazing how this works. And you can see now how our parents' generation, our generation or our parents' generation has had such horrendous menopause transitions, because they haven't been honoring their menstrual cycle for their whole lifetime. So it builds up, builds up, builds up. And then when menopause transition comes, which again was a beautiful celebrated initiation into the wise woman, which now is frowned upon in society because society expects us to act the same, look the same, and be the same all month and all lifelong. And once elder women aren't valid in society's eyes, so women try to avoid this sacred transition into the wise woman. And as well as not honoring her cycle for her whole lifetime, no wonder why women are completely losing themselves in this transition of menopause and the horrendous symptoms that they have with it. So honor your cycle now, you will be rewarded. So just about the menstrual blood on the third eye. So the red dot that Hindu women put between their eyes on their third eye used to be menstrual blood, and it was done to invoke the potential visionary aspects inherent in the blood time. Your blood carries with it all your genetic information and your ancestors' genetic information. So this practice could open your third eye to specific personal information and ancient knowledge. The third eye area is also the place of the pineal gland, referred to in ancient knowledge as the seat of the soul. So this practice could well increase connection and communication with one's higher self and ancestral wisdom. This practice is most powerful done at bedtime on the third night of your moon time, with a special invocation to remember your dreams in the morning. So traditionally, women were revered for the visions, realizations, and prophecies they gained while menstruating. This sacred time gave insight for the month ahead and beyond. By tuning into yourself during your bleed and opening up to this gateway, slowing down into contemplative states allows the emergence and connection to higher consciousness. Only if you allow yourself quiet time, rest, and reduce the noise of the outside world. Retreat and you shall find. You shall find the ideas, knowledge, and information will begin to come to you. Information about what you truly want and need. Guidance and ideas for projects, connection with other realms is also available to us in our menstrual phase, as we hold all the wisdom of the month ahead. We are the oracle, the poet, the wise woman in this time. The inner knowing will come, but can slip away if you're not conscious of it. So the early mornings are our most intuitive time. Listen to your thoughts, feelings, and dreams, particularly day 1 and 3 of your menstrual cycle between 3 and 6 a.m. Have a notepad next to your bed, and then you can be able to download and materialize what comes through for you. I highly recommend having a dream diary as well. This is a practice that I've been doing. I have a beautiful dream diary by Magic of Eye. And I write down my dreams in the morning. And that's been really great to reflect on and see different messages coming through from my dreams and my subconscious. So opening to the menstrual mysteries opens us to the power of woman, channeling the information we need. And so back to the menstrual cycle, we've got week 2, which is the maiden, the young woman, reflective in the waxing moon, day 7 to 14 of the menstrual cycle. East, spring, new beginnings, the sunrise, renewal, integrating, implementing, rising, light and vitality. Like coming out of hibernation, stepping back into the world and nourishing the new ideas that you have gained from week 1. And it's time to start integrating, implementing and expressing strong and clear. Feel the rise in energy moving into the light with enthusiasm and vitality for the new cycle ahead. And so physically, estrogen is thickening the uterine wall and follicles are maturing, the ovaries preparing for ovulation. And week 3 is the mother phase of the menstrual cycle. This is ovulation. It's reflective in the full moon. And this is the phase of the menstrual cycle that most women love because they have more creativity and fertility. They look better, they feel better. There's this creative, expansive energy. So energy peaks at this time with personal power, self-confidence, strength, manifestation, creation, fertility, passion, shining heart energy, outward masculine energy with high creativity. Start putting ideas into practice. You have energy to share during this time, except if you're ovulating on the new moon, that energy isn't as expressive and vibrant as what it would be if you're ovulating on the full moon. So yeah, it's the best time to start new projects or express those new projects that you've been working on. Libido is also the highest at this time, of course. We are wired for procreation. So week 4 is the Enchantress. So this is the autumn week of the cycle. We're going to go a little bit deep into this one. This is day 21 to 28 of the menstrual cycle. Marga, which is the menopausal woman. It's the west, the sunset, and autumn. In autumn, everything's drying up and the leaves are falling off. Nature's detoxing and releasing. It's an inward sensitive time. Time to surrender. Time to process. What is not okay is not okay. It's a hypersensitive time, emotionally, physically, and mentally. Feminine inward drawing energy, subconscious connection. Patterns and conditionings come to light, feeling deeply. It's a time to be, not do. Prioritize it. It's such a sensitive time. It's also truth time. So use this time as a gift. Women have this time as a precious and sacred time for self-realization, to raise awareness and consciousness, honor your body, to heal the feminine, to let go, and to allow the sacred energy to flow. And so these are wise words by Eckhart Tolle. He's the author of The New Earth and The Power of Now. The collective dimensions of the pain body have different strains in it. Tribes, nations, and races have their own collective pain body, some heavier than others. And most members of that tribe, nation, or race have a share in it to a greater or lesser degree. Almost every woman has her share in the collective female pain body, which tends to become activated, particularly just prior to that time of menstruation. At that time, many women become overwhelmed by intense negative emotion. If you are able to stay alert and present at that time and watch whatever you feel within rather than be taken over by it, it affords an opportunity for the most powerful spiritual practice, and a rapid transmutation of all past pain becomes possible. The suppression of the feminine principles, especially over the last 2,000 years, has enabled the ego to gain absolute supremacy in the collective human psyche. Although women have egos, of course, the ego can take root and grow more easily in the male form than in the female. This is because women are less mind-identified than men. They are more in touch with their inner body and the intelligence of the organism where the intuitive faculties originate. The female form is less rigidly encapsulated than the male, has greater openness and sensitivity towards other life forms, and is more attuned to the natural world. So that is my expression of sacred menstruation. So yes, our autumn week is a time to be sensitive and aware of what's coming up for us. and we have a deeper connection to our subconscious. It's a really powerful time for healing and for working on ourselves, our shadow work. Then moving into our winter phase of our menstrual cycle, we're releasing, we're resting, we're rejuvenating. And then our spring and summer times are a beautiful time of our menstrual cycle to create, to manifest, to express, to connect. And by honoring these seasons, we are able to cultivate and express our divine feminine power in all its purity. By resting, rejuvenating, then allows us more power, creativity, and clarity to express our projects through our work, through our society, through our community. We are cyclic beings. Everything in nature is cyclic. We have the seasons, we have the different moon phases. Of course, we're cyclic beings. And yeah, it's been a conspiracy for thousands of years that for women to believe that they should be the same all month long or year long is not the truth. So we are ever changing, and it's really a part of this shift is honoring that, honoring our cycle, our bleed, our feminine energy, and passing that down to the next generation. Does anyone have any questions, comments? I'll stop the share so you can see me now on a full screen. Any questions or comments before we finish up? You're welcome to write them in the chat. You're welcome to voice them. Any questions or comments before we finish? If not, we'll finish with a prayer. If everyone wants to just close down their eyes again, and a nice deep breath into the heart space. Exhale down through the body, through the womb space, down into the center of the earth. With our awareness back into the womb space, I'm just going to chant Sat Nam, a long Sat and a short Nam, which means truth, inner truth, divine truth, universal truth, allowing us to step into our truth with your awareness in your womb space. Sat Nam. And the prayer for deep serenity. Divine Mother, I come before you, naked and vulnerable. Please allow me to enter your sacred womb space. Please help me to settle into the infinite peace of your arms. Please bring me the deep, gentle patience of the pregnant mother. Everything happens at the perfect time. Everything is for the greater good. Please suffuse me with your deep serenity. Please soften my heart and remind me of my true home. Thank you for the honor of sharing this with you, beautiful women. There is a 22% discount code in the Birthing New Earth platform on my page available to you that have joined in tonight. I believe I'm actually giving away a free pass. I was giving something away. Oh, free consultation, that's what it was. Free consultation, a sacred menstruation or conscious conception consultation. Winner will be drawn automatically through the website, I believe. And otherwise, there's a 22% discount code either being sent to you or potentially on the page. And that's for the Sacred Menstruation E-Mersion, which is a 4-week journey deep into the different phases of the menstrual cycle. This is just a tiny little touch that we've gone through this evening. There's 4 different yoga practices for the 4 different phases of the menstrual cycle, 4 different breath practices, 4 different goddess invocations with light language, and 4 different transmissions, learning how we can really honor and nurture and nourish ourselves in those 4 different phases with ancient rituals and practices. So it's a really, really beautiful, deep immersion that you can do at your own pace. I recommend starting it with week 1 with your bleed. And I've also got another e-course, the Shakti Code e-course, which is a 7-week journey for menstrual well-being and optimal fertility. So I recommend taking this one if you've got any menstrual conditions or complaints, or wanting to learn natural fertility awareness or conscious conception, where the Sacred Menstruation E-Mersion is really stepping into utilizing our menstrual cycle as a spiritual practice, which is such a beautiful thing and such an honor to be able to do as a woman. So my name is Holly Fairley. I'm from Shakti Holistic Healing, and I'm Shakti Healing, Shakti_healing on Instagram. I'm in service to you, so anytime you have any questions, comments, or want to connect, please do. I really hope that I've planted some seeds and that you're able to see your menstrual cycle as sacred and deepen into healing the divine feminine energy within yourself and your family and your community. So thank you so much. All my love. Om Shanti Satnam.